but in despair, their fortunes deplore, night doth but shed shame disclose. Never may my woes be relieved,
My woes be relieved, since pity's fled,
and tears
tears
and sighs
sighs
and groans, my weary days, my weary days, all joys have deprived. From the highest
highest smile of contentment, my fortunes thrown,
and fear
fear
and grief
grief
and pain, for my
deserts,
all my hopes, since hope is gone. Hark, you shadows that in darkness dwell, learn to contempt light.
happy,
But in hell, fear not the world's despite. Hark, you shadows that in darkness dwell, learn to contempt light.
happy,
But in hell,
feel not the world's despite.
Fantastic, both of you. Well done. Thank you so much. Really, really
Yeah.
beautiful. Yeah. Isn't this just one of the best songs in the English repertory? This really, I really think it is.
Yeah.
And the Lacrimae has an interesting history. I think Sam, you probably know more than I do about it.
For sure. Well, tell me, what do you guys know about this song?
Well, it's one of the cornerstones of English song, certainly a lute song,
Absolutely.
and it really kind of epitomises the sort of mournful style of really.
It's a big melancholic element.
Absolutely, it's melancholic, elements and the attitude that they had, that Elizabethan people had towards, sort of the intention that you had to put behind music, and I think it tells us a lot about the sort of fashions of the time.
That's a very good observation, Vivian, yes, for sure. So, Lacrimae Flow My Tears originally was a pavan, a solo lute piece composed by Dowland, and he later put the lyrics to it and published it in his second book here, which was published in 1600. As you rightly point out, it captures something of the Elizabethan zeitgeist, the spirit of the times, to the extent that this became, as well as Dowland's signature tune, world famous. It was one of the most famous, probably the most famous piece of its time, was published throughout Europe and very, very widely disseminated and quoted. So we can see, this is a really significant and important piece of lute song. And certainly Dowland appreciated it enough that he used to sign himself John Dowland de Lacrimae, John Dowland of
Oh,
the man who wrote Lacrimae. Was that important to him?
This is one hit single, although there were many.
At least 4 songbooks, but certainly this is the most emblematic of
Yeah.
Dowland. It captures really his sort of
So,
melancholic worldview that he's very famous for.
And actually, the whole section of the book that it comes from, isn't it? Because it's it's preceded by
You're
My Lady.
absolutely
Yes.
right. Yes, precisely. It's rather fantastic. The first book of songs, as you well know, by Dowland, are all 4-part songs. They can be sung by soprano, alto, tenor, bass throughout the whole book. The second songbook, even though that was very, very popular, the first 7 songs, I think, in the book, 7 or 8 songs even, up to... Yes, the first 8 songs of this book, as you can see, are all 2-part songs.
Sam, can I intervene at that point? So why, when we're using this copy, obviously we've got this layout here, which is quite interesting. How does this facilitate, how do you find working this book? What's going on here? Because we've got the cantus part down this side, but very cleverly the bass part is rotated, so you can read it from here.
yeah, it certainly feels suggestive that I should sit next to the bass singer, and it makes sense because of the layout of the book for me to also be sat next to the lutenist.
Absolutely.
And it's just helpful because for gesturing, we are singing about the same thing. I realise there's heavy counterpoint, but our words link so well together, but we seem kind of all on a very similar plane. Rather than being 4 corners of a table, we're all sitting along the same plane. So.
That's right, but of course back then they couldn't really afford to buy many books.
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
Or books were a lot more expensive
Yes.
than this wonderful reprint was. And so this was the way they got round it, was you had one book and then you seated people at different parts of the table, and in book 1, of course remember that the bass part's printed this way, you put your alto here, and the alto gets all this room, which is lucky alto, the tenor has to squeeze on there, so anyway, that's how those books work.
I thought it was a very astute point you made there, Rachel, because you are literally singing from the same page.
Yes, yeah.
Very welcome.
Yeah.
Yes, we're all
thought.
on the same page.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes.
And you made another very interesting point there, the fact that you guys are singing in dialogue about the same thing.
Absolutely.
And we can have a look about that in a second.
It does feel very much like a conversation because we're constantly rhythmically, melodically bouncing off of each
we're
other's
reinforcing
comments.
one another's greeting.
Particularly
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
the antirs, sighs, groans, that
Where you are
section.
so beautifully in dialogue. Shall we have a shot at that? Is
Yes.
it possible to take it from your upbeat there, Fabian?
Yeah.
So and
On and tears.
That's right.
Yeah.
And
tears.
let's see. Is fled.
And tears. And sighs.
And sighs.
And groans.
Sorry, I got the wrong bit. Sorry.
So it's very hard in these copies because we
It's
don't.
hard.
There are
We
no
don't have any
bars or
bar
anything.
lines.
No.
No.
You have to have a real familiarity with the.
And
with the
hard to
text.
pick it up halfway through.
Yeah,
Harder
yes.
than I thought it was going to be.
So you realise how much time they had in Renaissance just to
Yeah.
enjoy doing these
Yes.
things as a bit of a hobby. Perhaps
Take it
the
from-
easiest place is
From Never May My Woes.
Yeah,
Never.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, of course,
that's
yeah.
okay. Yeah.
Just so we can listen to that dialogue.
My woes be relieved, since feet is fled.
And tears, and
Tears,
sighs, and
sighs,
groans, my weary days, all joys have deep thy
Very nice, guys. Very
Lovely.
nice. This is a beautiful example of seeing how you kind of reinforce one another's parts and really push each other up there,
Yeah.
crescendo through that line. I thought that was exquisite. You really caught that very, very nicely. I mean, the quality of the performance there was superb. I thought that was really, really good. And you have an excellent rapport with one another. The way that you're
Yeah.
gesturing and it feels very conversational, which is exactly the vibe we want here.
and it's quite unusual to hear this piece with the bass part sung.
Very
Sometimes you hear it with the viol part. More often than not, we hear this. Was it grade 8, isn't it? I think.
Yeah.
With piano.
It's
Yeah.
all great,
And,
it's
but
really
actually, this is really the combo that perhaps Dowland envisaged.
yeah.
For sure. There's a couple of places that generally you are bringing out the words beautifully. You're really picking in on some very important words in the piece. You know, if you had to sort of scan through this, where would you say you're putting the sort of, what are the most dramatic moments in the piece? What are the really dramatic words in the song?
I think flow. Just to begin with, I know it's
absolutely.
the first word, but there's a lot of pressure you can get behind the F consonant, and it's almost like a sort of word painting of flowing. I think you can introduce the mood of the piece just on that first chord, with a lot of power behind it.
Very good
Yeah,
point. Of
yeah.
course, this motif
Yes.
became not only Dowland's signature tune, but it's very, very emblematic. The idea of a tear welling and then bursting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And even
Yeah.
in the word setting is very cleverly done, because I think the sort of flow,
The
kind of
fluid,
consonant
yeah.
is kind of onomatopoeic almost of the kind of
The gesture we're
cascading.
looking for.
Yeah.
So yes, absolutely right. This is one of the most important dramatic words to bring out of the piece. What else can you think?
And I think it's interesting with the melody in the cantus part. It would seem that fall is possibly the kind of climax of that phrase. But I'd say, and do disagree with me, but I think springs is possibly another more important word in that phrase. What would you say? Because that's really emphasising the kind of the volume of the tears, obviously. But
One little thing that
cadence there as well. Sorry. go on.
no, not at all.
Yeah.
One thing that often helps when we're singing and to communicate a piece is to really focus on the verbs. So if I often use this technique if I'm lost for how to get something across. So you know, if I just take Sam and me just for one moment on the cantus. You know, flow, my tears, fall from your springs, exile forever let me. And kind of an audience will understand a lot of the reason I was slightly mumbling the other words was to just make that contrast.
Yeah.
Often the verbs are really. When we hear the requests, so flow your tears from your springs, exiled forever, let me mourn. Just let me do this. And this is something we see coming up again and again in this music. Please just let me do this.
Yeah.
Should we take it from the top and let's just find this?
I love that.
There's a lovely balance going on, isn't there, between Fabian and Rachel? You
Sit
can hear
back so I can.
how actually Fabian's doing his best just to really be this sort of very calm C. Float, as we said about floor, putting the pressure on, because that will push Rachel too much. So let's take it from the top and let's just really find these words and the shape of the phrase a little more to each other.
Flow, my tears fall from your springs.
Brilliant. Now, I want you to make sure that when you flow my tears, but also
Fall.
yes. So make sure you emphasise that you're saying two things to Fabian at that point. That's beautiful.
Yeah.
And the way you were listening to the lute was a lot better that time.
Yes.
Flow, my tears fall from your springs.
Next thing.
Exile
Forever let me mourn when night's blackbird sadly sings. Let me live forlorn.
Bravo, guys.
Yeah,
That
that's
is
really
beautiful.
beautiful.
Good. One little moment, a suspension that's worth bringing up, particularly for you, Fabian, is
Yeah.
here. Let me mourn, me mourn. This is a cadence.
yes, yeah. wow, that sounds
Yeah,
Yeah.
you can hear.
haunting.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's kind of like
Falling down
terrifying.
here.
Yes,
The
yeah.
way that
A good observation. This is one of those
Yeah,
pieces
yeah.
that it should send a few shivers down the spine. I think. You know, can we just if we can jump in on there? Let me more. Would that be okay?
Yeah,
Fred, just careful there. Light, blackbird. You have to be the
Okay.
blackbird in the night that we don't notice.
Yes, sure.
Light,
Yeah.
blackbird. It's just gonna think of the calm state.
Yeah.
Let me.
Sings
Yeah.
right in the night.
Let me more.
Very nice. Very beautiful, guys. Good. Notice the same suspension on infamy.
Yes, I did.
Infamy sings.
Mm.
Exactly.
I'd like to
Very,
bring
very
some
nice.
gesture into
Yeah.
this first bit. You both really warmed up with the gesture in the first run through, particularly from "Never May My Woes," and perhaps that's a little easier to resolve.
is
It
easy.
never may my woes, and we can
Yes.
feel that. But actually, we've got to find. We're having this conversation. Flow my tears, fall from your springs, and for me, when I'm doing this music, I'm just simply explaining to someone what I want. So
Okay, yeah.
that I don't know. Try that with each
Mm.
other, and
Yeah.
just find these gestures.
Can I suggest that possibly the reason why we warmed more to the gestures in the second section is because the words are naturally more eupheistic. As you said, that never may my woes be relieved, since pity's fled. Whereas in the first half it's a little harder to kind of pinpoint that. What would you?
Absolutely. Well, I think we can flow my tears, offer out. So this is always offering. When
Yes.
we
Yeah.
offer like this. But of course, exiled forever, let me mourn.
Yeah.
So we're really finding that
or
intention.
bidding
what we
for
want.
something.
Or-
Please.
yeah, there you
please
go.
Let me
There's a
more.
Yeah.
bidding. That's
Okay.
lovely. It's
Yeah.
all there.
Very nice.
Yeah.
Where night's blackbird, her sad infamy sings. It's up there.
Yeah.
There, over there. Let me live.
Yeah.
So pick your spot.
yeah.
But and you could. It doesn't have to be quite as obvious as that. But you
Yeah.
can give out to someone else. There, let me live. Please let me live.
Mm.
Yeah. Here we go.
Okay.
Well done.
Flow my
One more time. I'm going to stop
tears.
there. So we really go. Flow my tears. It has to dribble down.
The same shape as the lute.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
We got stuck immediately. Let's just keep that
Yeah.
absolute flow.
Yeah.
Gestures.
Flow my tears, flow from your springs. Exiled forever, let me mourn. When night's black verse sad infamy sings, then let me live forlorn.
Keep going. Now find it down.
Down the vain light shine on more.
Beautiful. And
No night is
tell that.
dark enough for those that in despair their fast fortunes deplore. Night doth but shame disclose.
Fantastic, folks. Wow.
That was magical. That was absolutely magical. Bravo.
I'm going to make two last points, if I may.
Mm-hmm.
And it's about consonants. So look, Often
I have a
in-
place that would be good to practice that.
you've
for
got to do
magic.
excellent. In singing, what we ideally always want to do is prolong the vowel as long as possible, because what happens then is you force the consonants into the smallest amount of space. So if I was to do it, flow my tears, you sort of give as much as I can
Yeah.
to the vowel. If I don't do that, flow my tears. We get no line.
Yeah.
The tear doesn't flow. It just jumps around. It's weird. Yeah. So, that's really always well. But the trade-off to that is that our consonants get a real sense of manicuredness around the edge, simply by virtue of the vowel, not because you've been told to do it.
Yeah.
So, let's find something, because where I thought about this was when night's that in despair. Now look, I'm not prolonging the vowel there, but I'm keeping the energy going. Despair, their lost fortunes deplore. So the air is always flowing. Yeah. Can we just? Oh, you've got an idea for when to do it.
I was
Go
just
on.
thinking it was a different detail actually on hark, which is.
Let's do it.
Yes, you see, it's not only is this quite a strong word with that very clipped K, hark. It's an imperative. It's telling people listen. You know?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So it needs to have a kind of energy to it. You know, hark, you shadows. You know, let's see if we can bring that out. If that's
Absolutely, because it's difficult when we have words that we don't use nowadays, but we in our
To get
mind we
behind
just
it.
have to imagine we're saying listen.
Yeah.
But
Yes.
hark, and those things the vowel goes all the way to the K. Hark.
Yeah.
You get it?
Would
Yeah.
you even take a micro pause there? Just hark. Would there be like a micro gap in between?
What's your
Good
reason
question.
for doing it? Would be my question.
Well, I'd want to keep hark as the imperative by itself. I'd want to almost grab the attention and then part my knowledge.
In which case, I bet you're going to do it really, really nicely. Because that's your intention to do it.
Yes.
Rather than hark. I know I do a pause here.
Oh, no,
Yes.
yes.
Do you know what I mean? So,
Yes.
yeah.
Is a
Yeah,
meaning
no,
for
of
that.
course, yeah.
Go.
Shall we jump right in on there?
Get each other's attention.
Yeah.
Hark, you shadows that in
darkness dwell, learn to contemplate light. Happy,
Let's make the repeat.
More on the verbs. Verbs, good verbs.
darkness dwell, learn to contemplate light. Happy, feel not the world's despite.
Magical, guys.
Fantastic.
That was beautiful. Well done on hark here, and I was so impressed at the way that you waited with each other for the right
Yeah.
moment on the T
Yeah.
on despite.
That took a few times to get it together, to sort of sync it up, as it were.
You completely clocked in to one another there.
Yes.
And did you find you were having to work harder?
Yes,
With the singing,
certainly.
yeah. So that's when we know we're singing well, because actually just the simple act of the consonants being faster and the breath afterwards having to spring from
Yeah.
that. Hark, you shadows that in darkness dwell, learn to. It's all kind of happening down there,
Yeah.
but it's with real intention rather than just we've been told. So it's so
It was
beautiful. both of you.
Fantastic. Absolutely
Thank you so
fantastic.
much.
Great, no, thank you.
Beautiful.
Thanks.
Well done.